"Who do you think you are?" he growled, his voice cutting through the crowded supermarket. "A black woman trying to lecture me on how to behave? You think your words mean anything here?" He had no idea he just picked the wrong person, a U.S. Army colonel, a woman who spent her entire life defending a country where a white man now feels entitled to humiliate her in public like she's beneath him. Maya wasn't in uniform that day. She was just buying a few cans of water and a pack of noodles. But when she politely asked him to pick up the item he had dropped, he didn't just ignore her. He insulted her, shoved her, threatened her, and then pulled a gun in the middle of a supermarket, in full view of a silent crowd. A black woman, unarmed, unarmored, facing a man with a weapon and unchecked privilege, but Maya didn't step back. She wasn't allowed to, because she had stared death in the face before and survived, because she knew if she stayed silent, thousands of other Mayas would be shot dead, just for daring to remind someone of their civic responsibility. You think this is rare? You think you'll never witness something like this? You're wrong. If you were in that supermarket, what would you do? Turn your back or stand up? This story will chill you, enrage you, and make silence no longer an option. Don't look away. Maya Reed woke up at 5:45 a.m. EMAIN, just like she had nearly every day for the past year, without an alarm, without a reminder. Since leaving the military, her body had kept the same disciplined rhythm it had during deployments in Kandahar. Wake up, breathe evenly, then rise in one smooth motion, as if even the bed sheets needed to be folded with razor-sharp precision. The small house she rented in East Austin wasn't fancy. A worn leather chair, a quiet wooden dining table, and a battery-powered wall clock of the cheap variety. But Maya loved the simplicity. It was quiet. No shouting, no midnight commands, no bullets tearing through the air. At 8 a.m., Maya got dressed. Not in uniform, just a clean white shirt, dark jeans, and a pair of old sneakers, the soles a little worn on the right heel. She tied her hair up tightly, revealing a strong, angular neck and warm brown skin that spoke of strength and calm. No one would look at her and imagine she once wore a Medal of Valor, commanded a battalion in Iraq, or stood shielding a young soldier when a bomb went off. Only the faded military watch on her left wrist, scratched at the edges, paint chipped off the crown, remained from the old days. She wore it daily, not to remember the past, but to remind herself every ordinary day is a gift, but also a choice that must be protected. She drove to her usual supermarket, not too big, not too crowded, quiet enough that you could hear the shopping cart wheels softly roll across the tile floor. Maya walked in like any other ordinary citizen, and in that moment she had no idea that, on the opposite entrance, another person had just stepped inside, bringing with him a very different kind of power. Travis Donnell entered the supermarket from the left side door, one hand still gripping the radio clipped to his chest, a habitual gesture reinforcing his authority. He was nearly 6'3", broad shoulders, flat stomach, and long strides, like the white-tiled aisles were made to obey his every step. His dark blue uniform hugged his muscular build, highlighting a puffed chest and strong biceps. Under his short sleeves, a faint gray tattoo stretched from elbow to upper arm, skulls, guns, and some hard-to-decipher initials. Travis had served 2 tours as a Marine before becoming a cop, but, unlike Maya, he didn't come back to live quietly. He returned to prove his authority, didn't stay behind on the battlefield. As soon as he entered, Travis scanned the store, not to find what he needed, but like he was inspecting his territory. A young staff member at the first counter gave him a nod. Travis only offered a half smirk, a careless nod, no eye contact, no basic courtesy. He didn't need to say a word. His posture was loud enough. "I'm here, and I'm the only one worth noticing." He strode over to the soft drinks section. His belt was fully loaded. Handcuffs, pepper spray, collapsible baton, radio, and a Glock secured tightly in its holster. As he walked, the gear on him gave off faint metallic clinks, like little reminders to everyone around that this wasn't just some regular man shopping. Travis stopped by the instant noodles aisle, not even glancing at the labels. He snatched a bright red, spicy-flavored packet, then casually grabbed a soda can from the opposite shelf. His movements were fast, forceful, careless, indifferent. The soda slipped from his hand, hit the floor, rolled in a small arc and stopped near the feet of a woman just under 10 feet away. Maya Reed. Travis glanced over. He saw the soda can. He saw the ramen packet that had been pulled down with it, but didn't bend down. No apology, no second glance. He just kept walking. He grabbed a bottle of chilled mineral water, adjusted the radio's volume like he was still on duty, even though he wasn't working today. The red ramen pack lay torn at one edge. The silver soda can was dented, rolled further, and stopped beneath the olive oil shelf. Maya looked down, not startled by the noise, but because decades of training made her alert to even the smallest changes. A slowed footstep, an off sound, didn't turn, didn't bend, didn't apologize, didn't care about the items or the person nearby. Maya stood still, eyes on the fallen ramen, and not just objects, but signs of a kind of indifference masked as authority that had threatened her entire life. She'd seen it on the battlefield, in military summits, in boardrooms where decisions came from those who'd never pick anything up. In her head echoed the lesson she'd taught new soldiers. If you can't fold your blanket properly each morning, how can I trust you to take care of your team when bullets fly? A lesson she didn't just preach, but lived. Respect starts with small actions, with how you treat what seems insignificant. She set down her lemon water, bent slightly to pick up the soda can, her motion light, but something opened in her chest. Not for the soda itself, but from the awareness of being in the presence of someone who dismissed consequences. Sure, no one would ever hold him accountable. A child ran by, nearly kicking the ramen pack. Maya didn't rush. She looked toward Travis, now fiddling with his radio by the refrigerated drinks. Not looking back. The ramen still lay there, ignored, unnoticed. Only Maya saw it, and she wouldn't ignore it. She smoothed the ramen pack in her hand, not perfectly, not to keep it. She walked slowly, steadily, not in a rush. No one noticed. A mother counting yogurt cups, a clerk restocking milk, pop music playing lightly, its lyrics sweet and mocking. No one realized that in a few quiet steps, something would shift. Maya moved toward Travis. The sound of her sneakers was soft, but to her, it was as clear as marching orders, like facing down an unstable soldier, a commanding officer who crossed a line, an order that needed resisting. Travis didn't turn. He leaned against the fridge, scrolling on his phone, glancing at his radio like it proved he was still on duty. Maya stopped, less than 2 meters away, not challenging, not calling out, just present, close enough to smell the faint mint from the water bottle he held, steady enough to make the air feel thick. She raised her hand, offering the ramen pack. "You dropped this," her voice even, not harsh, spoken by someone who had survived bomb blasts, faced military tribunals, and knew that courtesy could be a forged strength. Travis turned. Their eyes met. A flicker of surprise, then guardedness. He wasn't used to being called out, especially by a black woman with steady eyes. He didn't take the ramen. He looked her over, smirked with disdain. "And what exactly do you think you're doing?" Maya didn't answer right away. She placed the ramen on the shelf beside him, straightening it, eyes locked, not confrontational, not flinching. "I'm just reminding someone about a small thing, before it becomes a big one." The silence that followed was invisible, unnoticed by others. But anyone who's seen conflict would understand. A battlefield had just opened. Maya didn't want to make a scene. She stepped forward, ramen pack and soda can still warm in her hand. Not from temperature, but from the unconscious care of someone trained to move without making a sound. She'd once led recon units through hostile terrain without disturbing a single leaf. She stepped lightly, breathed evenly, spoke to young soldiers in a low voice, not out of fear, but so they would listen. In the noisy supermarket, she kept that rhythm. Travis stood at the end of the aisle, blocking the drinks section, unaware he'd dropped anything. His hand skimmed labels, radio blinking green. Maya stopped to stride away and said gently, "Excuse me, you might not have noticed, But you dropped a few things. Her voice was soft as breath, nearly drowned out by the hum of the air conditioner. No warning, no accusation. Just a polite reminder between adults in a public space. She wasn't hoping for thanks, didn't expect him to pick anything up. She simply believed, deep in her core, that people should be reminded to do the right thing if someone was brave enough to speak up. Travis turned, dazed at first, then his eyes shifted to contempt. Maya wasn't surprised. She'd seen that look before, from male colleagues when issuing orders, or officers when reporting misconduct. Wasn't personal reaction, it was a learned posture. White men in uniform don't get corrected, especially not by a black woman. Travis glanced at the ramen, his disdain barely concealed. He opened his mouth, and Maya knew whatever he was about to say wasn't just about the fallen items. This was the beginning of something breaking, sparked by a basic courtesy he didn't know how to receive. He raised his eyebrows and looked at Maya like she was a strange product on a shelf, his head tilted, a mocking grin curling one corner of his mouth. "And who do you think you are talking to me like that?" It wasn't a question, but a shove in verbal form. "I wear the uniform, and you, what are you?" Maya didn't answer. The ramen pack felt like it might fall, but she held it firmly, not for its worth, but because it had become a symbol of an attitude being discarded, something she refused to let slide. Travis stared at the noodles, now with unveiled contempt. A black woman holding a pack of ramen, thinking she's some kind of ethics instructor? "I don't have time for this nonsense." His voice wasn't loud, but loud enough. A woman near the fruit stand turned to look, then looked away. An old man pushing a cart paused for a second, then kept moving. No one wanted involvement. No one took the side of what was right. Maya inhaled lightly, not surprised. She was used to no one being explicitly wrong and no one defending what was right. She placed the soda on the shelf, held on to the ramen. "You don't need to thank me," she said, her eyes never leaving Travis. "I believe people in uniform, military or police, should act in ways that make others want to trust them." Her voice was quiet, not confrontational, not shaky, not trying to dominate, but not yielding either. Travis scoffed, the smirk of a man used to authority unchallenged. "Let me guess, ex-military? Got nothing better to do now but teach people how to live?" Maya didn't answer. She'd heard words like those from people who lacked the courage to serve but had plenty of ego to undermine those who had sacrificed. The ramen pack was light, but it marked a boundary. Disrespect on one side, principle on the other. Maya knew she hadn't picked up the noodles to return them, but to remind someone. Sometimes the smallest things matter most. Travis stepped back, not out of fear, but to assert presence. His sleeve rolled up higher, revealing the Glock on his belt, not emphasized, but now the invisible center of gravity. He looked at Maya, not smiling. "Don't think a few years in the military gives you the right to point your finger at me. This is real life, not a boot camp, and I am the law." His voice wasn't raised, but the three words, "I am the law," rang out clearly. Maya didn't flinch, didn't step back, didn't reply. She stood still, used to threats that didn't make her submit. She'd heard that voice, seen that look from commanding officers who didn't want to listen to a woman, especially the lone woman without stars on her shoulders in a room full of men, always having to justify her place. In her mind, the line echoed again. "I believe people in uniform should act in ways that make others want to trust them." Not a slogan, an inner fence forged over years. A store clerk walked past, eyes darting from Maya to Travis, then looked away and quickened their steps, sensing something wrong, but not stopping. Maya stood tall, fingers light on the ramen pack, not retreating, not out of stubbornness, but because stepping back in the face of wrong is giving it permission to grow. Travis folded his arms, his eyes scanning the store, searching for witnesses or affirming glances to restore his ego. There were none. The people around them stared silently, as if they'd seen too much already, thinking, "Not my problem." Maya spoke again, softer now but clearer. "I'm not pointing at you. I'm asking a question, like any citizen has the right to ask. Are you doing the right thing?" Wasn't an accusation. It was power asking power to look at itself. Travis curled his lip, a crooked smile, patience thinning. "You used to be in the military?" Retired now? Nothing better to do but teach people how to behave? Don't think a few years in uniform gives you the right to lecture me." The words weren't shouted, nor vulgar, but they hit their mark, calm but sharp. Maya's jaw tightened briefly, a muscle twitch, then eased. She had once worn the nameplate Cole M. Reed, with a 2-page resume of achievements, but she had also once stood alone in a meeting room, hearing a commander say, "You're good, but not the right image for frontline leadership." Her name scratched off a deployment list, replaced by a younger, white, less experienced officer. Official reason, staff balancing. Real reason, too strong to control. She remembered nameless commendation certificates, group photos where she stood in the back, half obscured, the colleague who took her credit never saying thanks. Those things didn't break her. They forged her. She didn't need to shout, didn't need to prove who she was. She just held her gaze, refusing to let his tone define her worth. An old sergeant's words echoed from training camp. "Don't let him win by making you lose control. Control is the last weapon they can't take unless you give it to them." Travis didn't know Maya had heard those kinds of words for years. What he said wasn't new. It was a repetition of a system that pretended to be old but stayed alive through silence. She looked at him, not angry, not bowed, not backing down, stronger than those who threatened her with a badge, a uniform, and an empty sense of power. Maya stood for a few breaths. The air thickened, not from the freezer section, but from Travis's final line, a slice across the moment. "You should know your place before you cause trouble that isn't needed." Especially with that skin and that tone. No one gasped, no outrage. No one said, "You can't say that." Just a dry silence. The insult hung in the air, unchallenged. No one stepped in to push back its shadow. Maya didn't tremble. Her hand still held the ramen, weightless, but now a symbol of systemic indifference. She turned away, not defeated, but knowing that to stay would mean choosing between rage and freedom. She chose freedom. She walked a few steps that felt longer than anything that day. She paused near a nearby shelf, looked at the ramen as if it carried the weight of every silenced conversation. She didn't keep it. She placed it back, aligned neatly on the rack, as if it had never fallen, never been picked up in disdain, like a soldier placing down their weapon, not in surrender, but in victory over what will not control them. She turned away, not looking back. Travis stood frozen, controls slipping, unaware Maya had just offered him the chance to reassess his power. He missed it. The price wasn't paid yet, but the process had begun. The space behind Maya cracked softly, like a mirror scratched. Not shattered, not broken wide open, but enough for any observer to notice something isn't right. A dropped item, a quiet reminder, a reaction, a small fracture, and sometimes the crack is where the light gets in. Maya could have walked away, with frustration, a dented soda can, a fallen packet of noodles, and the contemptuous gaze of a smug cop. Anyone else might have chosen to leave, to avoid trouble, confrontation, or a scene with someone in uniform. But Maya Reed wasn't just anyone. A former colonel who once issued retreat orders in 3 seconds, who weighed lives on the faintest sound. She no longer wore a uniform or led special forces, but discipline, instinct, and justice remained in her. She turned back. There was no anger in her posture or stride, no need to win written on her face. Her expression was blank, not cold, but steady, like a wall through fire. She didn't look at Travis like an enemy, only as someone wrong that no one dared correct. Her voice rang out, not loud, but clear. "I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable. I just think someone in uniform should set an example, even in small things." Travis looked up, holding a bottle of water, eyes squinting, brows furrowed as if offended. He sneezed, not from the cold, but as if Maya's words were dust in his body's system. He sneered. "Set an example? Here? You think this is kindergarten? I'm under no obligation to be a role model." His voice rose, spreading down the aisle. The butcher turned his head. A girl holding a shopping basket froze, her eyes collecting the moment, curious, hesitant, then wary. Maya didn't blink. She knew conflict didn't start with guns. It started with unchecked words and the silence of bystanders. Today she would not be silent, not for herself, but for principle. Travis gripped the water bottle tightly, his knuckles turning white, eyes scanning around, realizing his tone had crossed from private conversation into something more. Maya remained still. No step forward, no step back. The distance didn't change, but their views of the world became clear. "I'm not lecturing you," she said, voice steady. "I just think being part of a community means being accountable for how we behave." Travis chuckled, not amused. "You're here to teach me ethics? Professor, life coach, or moral expert?" A faint laugh came from near the freezer aisle. A man in a blue polo, holding a tub of vanilla ice cream, nodded, as if to say, "Yeah, that sounds right." Travis caught his eye, encouraged. Not everyone was silent. Some believed in his authority, even if they didn't know the full story. But Maya wasn't alone. A middle-aged woman in a beige coat stepped slowly closer and whispered, just loud enough to hear, "You're right. People with power think they don't have to act right. You're saying what needs to be said." Maya nodded slightly, not in thanks, but in acknowledgement of an ally appearing. Across the way, a buzz-cut young man, maybe 20, shrugged and shook his head. "She just wants trouble. It's just a packet of noodles. Why make it a big deal?" A young woman, pushing a cart with a baby in it, looked at Maya anxiously, turned her cart down another aisle, silent, choosing neutrality as safety, as if picking sides was too risky. The supermarket atmosphere shifted. It was no longer just Maya versus Travis, but a choice between speaking up or standing aside, between reminding people of their shared responsibility or trusting unchecked authority. Travis sensed the change, not because Maya said much, but because the eyes around them were no longer indifferent. The store seemed to slow, not due to an announcement, but because of something no one could pretend not to see. This confrontation had no fists, no guns, only words, sharp as surgical blades. A woman by the cookie shelf held a box, but didn't choose, watching Travis, Maya, then everyone else, waiting for someone to voice what she was thinking. No one spoke, but the crowd stood still, neither shopping nor walking away, too aware to pretend, too unsure to act, caught witnessing and weighing. A store employee stood in the distance, holding a price tag sign, lips tight, eyes tense. He didn't approach, but he knew if he turned around and reported this, the man in uniform wouldn't be able to just walk away like nothing happened. Travis felt the pressure shift, not onto Maya, but onto himself. He shifted his stance, rotated the water bottle with his thumb, a small agitated reflex that revealed loss of control. Maya didn't speak further. She knew truth didn't need to argue, just to be seen. A woman with a toddler spoke up. "I don't know you, but you had the guts to speak. That's rare." A guy in a hoodie muttered, hands in pockets. "This is messy. Getting into it with a cop? That's dangerous." An elderly man rolled closer in a mobility scooter, paused, said nothing, but turned his phone toward Travis and hit record. Travis noticed. He knew he was being filmed, a feeling unfamiliar to someone used to being trusted by default. The tension was no longer between two people. It had split the air like water breaking, between power that demanded no accountability and a citizen demanding answers. Maya didn't shout, but the silence had shifted toward her, and that loss of control unsettled Travis. The air was dense. Every word left an echo. Travis sank into it, slowly, heavily, losing footing. He looked at Maya, not from above, but level, like trying to identify the source of his unease. "Who are you?" he barked, not mocking, but uneasy. "Who are you to judge a cop, a lawyer, an activist, a troublemaker?" His voice was louder now, slipping from control. The crowd shivered, not from volume, but from fear changing direction. Maya stood still. 1 second, 2, 3, long enough for people to wonder, what will she say? She took a small step forward, not aggressive, but reclaiming the space Travis's voice had tried to dominate. Her voice was low, steady, firm. "I'm a citizen." That was it. No title, no rank, no badge. Travis hesitated, waiting for credentials to refute, but the simplicity left him nothing to fight back. With Maya continued, "As a citizen, I have the right to expect that those who represent the law don't damage the values they represent." The crowd shifted. The young man nodded, murmured, "She doesn't have to be anybody. She's right." A woman holding a phone stopped filming but didn't turn it off. She stared at Maya for a long time, realizing something larger was unfolding. Travis looked around. No support, no one backing him up. The silence, now different, swallowed the authority he once wore like armor. He opened his mouth, said nothing. His hand clenched the water bottle, its label torn at the edge. The hum of the air conditioner filled the moment like a faint balm over a raw truth. Maya stood, not proud, not defiant, just present. A citizen who knew her role, who didn't need permission to speak. A voice rang out, not loud, but clear, from a 70-year-old man in a worn shirt, carrying a bag of greens, stepping slowly toward Maya. He didn't look at Travis. He looked at her, speaking just loud enough. "She's right. I lived in Chicago in the 60s. Trust me, we've seen this. It can't happen again." No one interrupted, laughed, or questioned it. Everyone understood. History recorded moments like this, when one person stood up for what's right, and the system stood still. Some nodded. The young woman stopped filming but kept her eyes on Maya. The man who earlier nodded along with Travis looked down at his sleeve, avoiding Maya's eyes. Agreement spread, not in applause, but in gazes. A middle-aged man raised his phone again, an act like a suspended verdict. Travis saw it, realized he'd lost control of the situation. No looks of respect, no silent approval. Only cameras and silence. Leaning toward the truth, Maya said nothing more. New presence, steady, unwavering, was the strongest message. No need for medals, victories, or titles. Just the reminder. Justice doesn't arrive on its own. It's built by those who stay when others turn away. Travis gripped the water bottle, not from rage, but from trembling, something he couldn't control. No gun could hide it. In the middle of a supermarket, with a dented soda can, a fallen packet of noodles, and a no longer silent crowd, the mirror of false peace cracked. A woman who'd walked through bombs had made the city look at itself. Not a single sound was made. No one stepped forward. No one told Travis he'd gone too far. No hand rested on Maya's shoulder in solidarity. The scene, in those few seconds that stretched like an eternity, was wrapped in a heavy silence. Not the soft hush of a library or hospital lobby, but the kind that chills the spine, like standing in freezing fog without knowing what lurks behind the mist. And like fog, that silence wasn't still. It moved, quietly weaving through glances, through held breaths, as Travis's voice cut through the air, sharp and irritable. Someone started to raise a hand, but left it suspended mid-air. Someone frowned, then quickly relaxed their face as if they hadn't reacted at all. Maya stood at the eye of it all, the center of a storm, where the winds were made of stairs, and the pressure came from those who chose silence. A bit further back, at the end of the aisle where the flickering fluorescent lights cast a faint glow on the snack shelves, a young woman with pastel pink hair and one headphone dangling was holding her phone. Her hand trembled, not from fear, but from emotion. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, thumb resting against the phone as if for balance. She didn't know why she was filming, only that she had to. If she didn't, no one would believe it happened. That in an ordinary afternoon at a grocery store, someone could be treated this way because of skin color, because of a polite reminder. Along with this bell, a few feet away, an elderly man with silver hair leaned on his shopping cart. His eyes didn't leave Travis, but he didn't pull out his phone. He didn't speak. He didn't visibly react. There was only a stillness, the kind belonging to those who had seen this before too many times to still be surprised. In those eyes were memories of times no one stepped in, no one spoke up, and everything was swept away like it never happened. Silence remains the most dangerous weapon. No arguments needed. No shouting. It makes the victim feel small. It makes the oppressor think they're supported. But beneath that fog, something in the air was shifting. A phone was recording. A pair of eyes was witnessing. And someone, though wordless, was beginning to rewrite the story in their own way. Maya stood in the aisle, but she knew she was no longer just in a convenience store. She was inside an invisible structure, a miniature society, where every look, every flinch, every step away was mapping out a landscape of silence. The air around her was heavy as lead, and she didn't need to turn her head to feel each wave of restrained breath, each hidden vigilance behind fabric masks. Everyone heard Travis speak. They heard every word, every deliberate emphasis, his voice louder than the quiet hum of the ceiling air conditioner. But they didn't respond. They didn't pick a side. Because they'd learned a deep-rooted reflex. Neutrality feels safe, neutrality feels comfortable, and comfort is always the easiest choice. Maya had been trained to read maps, not just of terrain, but of human behavior. She recognized signs of fear, of repressed solidarity, of ethical silence. A young woman pushed her cart past Maya, hesitated when their eyes met, then looked away, eyes downcast as if ashamed of what she had seen, but couldn't acknowledge. In that moment, Maya understood. She wasn't confronting a man, she was confronting a habit, a culture that had learned to sidestep rather than stand up, that preferred calm over justice and called it civility. She knew it well. She'd seen it on the battlefield, in military briefings, where a superior's silence could be more terrifying than a gunshot. Above her, nearly forgotten between the ceiling and the metal piping, a surveillance camera slowly panned, mechanical, emotionless, part of an old security system, unnoticed, unmentioned, but it was watching, it was recording. Unlike people, it didn't look away. It didn't pretend that what wasn't seen didn't exist. It saw, it remembered, and it stored the truth. Maya didn't look up at the camera, but she felt its presence, like an invisible eye watching her from above, silent like the crowd, but unwavering. She had once trusted devices like that back in the military, where cameras were the last witnesses when no one lived to tell the story. And now, once again, she stood in its frame, not as a monitor, but as the one being recorded, the focal point, not by choice, but because no one else dared. Travis didn't know, or didn't care. He moved as if the world revolved around his voice and posture. He leaned in toward Maya, voice laced with accusation and mockery. "What are you trying to do? Get attention? Trying to go viral or something?" He didn't direct it just at her. It was aimed at the room, a preemptive strike at all who were silently watching, recording, and it struck a nerve. Some lowered their phones, unsure, suddenly feeling accused, though they had done nothing wrong. But near the snack aisle, the girl with pink hair gripped her phone tighter. Her hand no longer shook, her face sharpened, eyes filled with resolve, not the kind driven by anger, but by responsibility. In her mind, a headline had started to take shape. She didn't need to type it, didn't need to speak it aloud. Police officer harasses black woman in grocery store. No hashtags, no effects, just one raw line, enough to shake thousands, if shared at the right moment. Maya didn't respond to Travis. She didn't look at the girl, but she felt everything. The current running through the thick air, the phone's recording, the eyes shifting, the silent punctuation of a story not yet closed. She didn't know if the footage would be posted, didn't know if the camera on the ceiling had the right angle. But in that moment, she believed, this time, something or someone would remember. And that was enough to keep standing. Maya stayed silent. She didn't flinch, didn't rise to the bait. She only looked calm, unwavering, not defiant, not afraid, but with the clear, steady gaze of someone trained to meet chaos with control. And in that instant, Travis stepped back, just half a step, barely noticeable. But Maya noticed she didn't shout, didn't cry, didn't rage, and that, more than anything, rattled Travis. He was used to dominance, through voice, posture, uniform. He was used to victims breaking down or giving in. But Mia, a black woman, standing tall, unflinching, did neither. She didn't need to raise her voice to be heard. Her presence was resistance. Across the aisle, a small sound broke the tension, a dry, slow throat clearing. The old man with silver hair, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke. His voice was soft but clear. "You don't have to talk like that. She just asked you to pick something up. Travis spun around as if jolted. His eyes narrowed, scanning the man's face like muscle memory from years of interrogation. But the old man didn't flinch. His cloudy eyes held no challenge, no fear, just persistence, like he'd seen far worse. And for the first time, Travis hesitated. Elsewhere, a 10-year-old girl tugged at her mother's hand. Her whisper, faint but cutting through the aisle, carried, "Mom, if he's a cop, why is he talking like that?" The mother looked shaken. She pulled her daughter away, but not before glancing back at Maya. In her eyes was something unnamed, part gratitude, part respect, part sorrow. She said nothing, but the look spoke louder than any cheer ever could. And then, like ripples from a single stone dropped in still water, the air began to shift. Not through outcry, not through movement, but through eyes. One by one, people began to see differently. They no longer looked at Maya as a disturbance, but as a moral anchor they didn't realize they needed. Travis's rage, dominant at first, was now slowly swallowed by a quiet tide, a tide of people who no longer wanted to stay out of it. No one said anything. No one shouted, "Justice for her!" No fists raised, no slogans chanted between noodle packs and snack bags. But no one was quite the same anymore. The change had no sound, no color, but it was real, like the shift before a storm, the kind only those who felt rain recognize. The crowd was no longer spectators. They had become witnesses, not with fists, not with fury, but by standing, watching, remembering. The silence remained, but its meaning had changed. It was no longer complicity. It was intention. It was a voice that didn't need to be loud. Phones kept recording. Some held their children tighter. Some exchanged glances, the kind shared by people who just saw something that shouldn't be normal. A middle-aged woman placed a hand on her chest, trying to calm her racing heart. A young man who had come in just to grab beer now tucked the can back into his basket, eyes still fixed on Maya. She didn't need a hand on her shoulder, didn't need protection. What mattered most was this: the truth hadn't been lost. The mother's look, the child's question, the old man's quiet words, they had all done something greater. They made sure this moment would be remembered, that there would be consequences. Above them, the security camera continued recording, voiceless and unseen. It wouldn't testify, wouldn't declare, wouldn't feel. But in a world where evidence is everything, it was indispensable. Maya didn't know if the footage would ever be used, ever be shown, but she knew, this time, she wasn't fighting alone. Something had begun to move with her, not outrage, but the slow, steady tide of collective memory reclaiming truth. She lifted her head. Her eyes found the small black dot in the corner of the ceiling. No smile, just a slow, quiet nod. A greeting to an invisible witness, a marking of a beginning. No one declared this the end. No one claimed justice had arrived. But something had shifted. A line had been crossed. A balance had tipped. And this time, justice, though not yet visible, was no longer on the sideline. Travis kept talking, his voice echoing through the supermarket like a dull knife scraping against raw nerves. You should know your place. Women like you, always acting righteous but just itching for a fight. Cops, the law, authority, that's not yours to lecture on, got it? Each sentence landed heavier, without yelling, without profanity. Travis knew how to wield words like weapons, each one a thorn pressing into memories Maya had tried to lock away. She didn't respond right away, just stood there, hand gripping her bag strap, lips tight, eyes locked ahead. But something inside had stirred. Maya froze. A memory rose like a curtain yanked open. Afghanistan, 2007. Captain Maya presented her plan to move through the Western Mountains. Her voice steady, her map clear. When she finished, Lieutenant Colonel Foster, a white superior, gave a short laugh. Reed, not a bad plan, but has anyone actually vetted it? Group strategy or just your personal hunch? The room went still. She felt the glances exchanged between officers. She wasn't being judged on what she said, but who she was. She wanted to say, I built this plan, I take the responsibility, and if it fails, it's on me. But she just nodded, repeated her points, proving in silence, I don't need belief, I need to be right. Missouri, 2011. night terrain training, freezing cold. She was giving instructions when a young corporal whispered to a buddy, "Why's a woman leading a special ops team? Never seen anyone moral enough to give good orders in the field." Not said to her, but said loud enough. She didn't reply. That night, when the unit lost the route, it was Maya who redirected them, got them back in 19 minutes, no map needed. Pentagon, 2016. Medal ceremony. She was one of 2 women honored. As she walked up, a reporter muttered, "Is she logistics or med?" No one else heard it, but her ears had caught hundreds of frequencies, never missing a coded dig. Now, in the supermarket, under LED lights and soft pop music, she heard it again, clearer than ever. Women like you should know their place. Her hand tightened, not to strike, but to anchor the old reminder. Don't let him win by making you lose control. The anger wasn't fire, it was undertow. She didn't tremble, didn't flinch. Her feet felt planted deep. If she snapped, she'd be too emotional. If she backed down, someone would say women like her should stay quiet to stay safe. No, not this time. She raised her head and looked at Travis, not with rage, but with sharpness, like a needle-piercing smugness. "Are you done? Or still trying to shrink me so you can feel bigger?" Travis paused, just for a second, but enough for everyone to see. The game of words was no longer his. The young girl stayed turned. The old man tightened his grip on the cart, but didn't move. No one stepped in, but Maya knew they stood with her, in silence. She was still intact, still in control, still standing. Thus again Maya Reed fought back, without raising her voice. And, like always, that was the hardest hit. Travis Donnell stood there, hands on his hips, chest rising and falling slightly, not from exhaustion, but confusion. A kind of confusion disguised carefully as arrogance. A kind of unease he'd never had to manage. Because before, he never had to. When he barked at someone, they lowered their head. When he threatened, they stayed quiet. When he flexed his authority, the world stepped aside. But Maya Reed was not like the other. She stood tall, shoulders steady without tension. Her gaze wasn't defiant nor submissive. It was the gaze of someone who had walked through places where real power lived, not in badges, but in integrity. Travis wasn't used to being challenged, especially not by a calm black woman. Every order, insult, and legal threat he threw at her landed in silence and echoed back. The more he spoke, the more he realized he was chasing control he no longer had. "Do you even know what you're doing?" he snapped, voice slightly too loud. His eyes narrowed, not to focus but to hide his uncertainty. Maya said nothing. Travis stepped closer, finger pointed. "I'm not saying it. Again, you're interfering with law enforcement." Still no reply. No step back. She simply stood, like a fixed point, forcing him to question his path. That unsettled him more than resistance ever could. The pink-haved girl still recorded. She didn't speak, but her phone had become part of the scene, an invisible, impartial witness. No one asked her to stop. The supermarket's atmosphere shifted. Earlier, people watched from a distance, avoiding eye contact. But since Maya stood firm, since Travis raised his voice, something changed. The space became charged, not with sound, but with attention. Maya, calm, reached into her coat pocket. Not hurried, not hesitant. It looked like she was pulling out a note, but it was her phone, and Travis knew. As the screen lit up, before she could call, Travis stepped in. That was the breaking point. No longer a conversation, no longer a clash of words. The line was crossed. He lunged and ripped the phone from her hand, sharp, deliberate, not accidental. Around them people flinched, not at a stumble, but at a calculated move. Maya instinctively stepped back. Her shoes slid slightly on the tile. Her back slammed into a metal shelf with a sharp clang. Her hand swept the edge of a soda stack. Cans toppled, clattered across the floor. Then, a glass bottle fell, shattered, pieces scattered. Now it wasn't just noise. It was an incident, one loud enough to turn every head. The pink-haired girl held her breath, but didn't stop filming. A woman across the aisle gasped. "He pushed her!" A man near the bakery dropped his bag, phone in hand in seconds. One action had become a signal. People began to move. No cues, no yelling, just instinct. Maya got up immediately. Her side ached but wasn't broken. Her mind sharp. She picked up her phone, scratched but working. She looked at the screen, then at Travis. No fear, no anger, just a gaze that said, "You went too far." She didn't scream. She didn't back down. She stood, surrounded by fallen cans, glass, and rising attention. Travis backed off slightly. His eyes searched for backup, but found none. Every raised phone chipped at his illusion of control. No one stepped in, not because they didn't care, but because they all knew. To speak now meant no turning away later. An older man near the exit called out, "He pushed her! I saw it! I got it on video!" His voice wasn't loud, but it carried weight, the kind earned from a life of hating abuse, and now, finally seeing it Travis's lips tightened. His eyes flared, not with power, but panic. Maya didn't need someone to defend her, because now the crowd had shifted from observers to participants. In seconds, the balance had turned. Travis hesitated, a small step back, but meaningful. Now, Maya wasn't just a problem to handle. She was the center of a scene coming apart around him, every gaze becoming evidence. He scanned the crowd again. Another voice called out, louder, "I got it! Everything's on video." A woman holding a child spoke up, trembling. "I'll testify. I was here the whole time." A young man in a gray hoodie nodded. "I recorded from when he raised his voice. Got it all. No shouting, no chanting, but also no more silence." Travis tried to speak. His mouth moved, finger pointed. "She provoked me. She made this up." But no one answered. Not because they didn't hear, but because no one believed. Maya stood still, phone in hand, dust on her fingers, her eyes locked on his. Not with triumph, just unshakable calm. She tapped the screen, dialed. Her voice, clear, steady, calm. "I need assistance. Central Market, number 9, Jefferson Street. Officer Travis Donnell forcibly took my phone, pushed a civilian, abuse of authority. I have witnesses and video." No extra emotion, no pause, just the precision of someone who knew the system and now called it to answer for itself. A store employee approached, unsure. Should we call the manager or the police? A dry, bitter chuckle came from the old man. "Call the police, son. The police is the problem." In that moment, the entire store shifted. This wasn't Maya versus Travis anymore. It wasn't one person against the system. It was everyone choosing what was right. Travis stepped back again. Not forced, but because he realized silence was no longer power's safe space. Every eye on him now asked one silent question. What power do you still have here? Maya didn't need cover. The phones were shields. The stillness of the crowd was her line of defense. The witnesses, once quiet, now stood as undeniable proof. This wasn't just about a woman and a cop. It was citizen versus corrupt, silence versus the choice to stand up. Maya didn't step forward, didn't step back, because now, for the first time, she wasn't alone. The air froze, not from the AC, not from silence, but because some boundary had been crossed. Travis stood before Maya, breathing hard, fists clenched, eyes sweeping the crowd, no longer met with avoidance or hesitation. No one feared him. That's what rattled him. Not humiliation, but the loss of control. His right hand moved, quietly, deliberately, resting on the grip of his Glock. He didn't draw it, but touched it, creating a tension stretched tight like a string. A strained breath escaped. Someone dropped a phone. The girl recording squeezed her device tighter, heart pounding, camera shaking. The old man took half a step. Instinctively, Travis touched the gun, thumb pressed the safety, index finger hovered near the grip. Ready. He didn't look at Maya. His eyes darted, searching for a justification he wasn't even sure of. Maya stood, still, no retreat, no words, staring through the uniform into the fear masquerading as authority. Her voice rose, quiet, clear, like a military command. "Are you sure you want to do that?" No threat, no judgment, just a question that froze the air. No one moved. No one dared breathe too loudly. The supermarket halted, caught between soft background music and erratic heartbeats. For Maya, this moment wasn't just between her and Travis. It embodied every time she'd been pushed to the edge and responded with reason, not instinct. Every moment she furrowed her brow instead of shouting, because a louder voice might cost a career. She remembered being called too stubborn, remembered staying calm to avoid being labeled uncontrolled, remembered courage mistaken for arrogance, resolve mistaken for threat. All of that compressed into this moment. Between her and the gun, her gaze and the question, "Are you sure you want to do that?" Travis froze. His hand paused. His eyes met Maya's. Not fear, but calm strength that knocked him off balance. She wasn't yelling, wasn't filming, wasn't calling for backup, just standing there, using a question and a stare as a mirror. Travis no longer saw himself as a cop, no longer saw the gun. He saw a man being seen fully by a community that no longer looked away. He lowered his hand, slowly, uncertainly, like removing a mask of power. A breath escaped him. No one spoke, no one clapped, no one cheered, but everyone understood. The man who touched his gun didn't pull the trigger, not out of fear of consequences, but because a woman made him face himself, with eyes hardened by war but not broken by it. Maya didn't look away until Travis stepped back. She said nothing more. The question was enough. The crowd, once frozen, began to move again, not with footsteps, but with their gaze, with the belief quietly awakened. A woman who stands still can make the world stop. Travis stepped back, hand off his gun, eyes still flaring with instinctive rage. Maya didn't move, silent, steady like a landmark in a battlefield, drawn by stares, gestures, and fading authority. She was no longer alone, no longer in a one-sided standoff. Behind her, a silent tide of solidarity was rising. Footsteps echoed gently. The pink-haired girl stepped slowly toward Maya, phone lit, camera rolling, eyes hesitant but unwavering. That step, away from safety to stand beside a black woman nearly faced with a drawn weapon, was the turning of a generation. "I've been filming from the start," she said quietly. "If you need it, the full clip, nothing missed." Maya looked at her. The young eyes bore no battle scars, but burned with newly lit justice. She nodded. "No thanks needed." Presence was enough. Another voice rose, older, deep, slow. The elderly man stepped forward, gripping his cart, voice firm. "I've seen this before." The store fell silent. He declared the truth. 1964, Georgia. My friend, a soldier, was beaten in the street for speaking against white cops hitting kids. No one stood with him. We lost him that day. He paused, looking at Travis. But today won't be like that. A wave of silence spread. No applause, but nods. Some stepped closer to Maya, phones raised. A mother, holding her child, hands trembling, said, "My kid needs to know no one, especially in uniform, has the right to touch someone like that." A young man in a backward cap, "You can't do that and call it duty. She did nothing wrong." Phones lifted, not secretly, but boldly, each recording a symbol of transparency. Each tap, a vote for justice. Travis stepped back. No words, no explanation. Eyes searching for someone, anyone, to take his side, but all he saw was the girl filming, the old man near Maya, the mother staring at him like a wrong exposed, and Maya, still, calm, unshaken, shifting the space around her by simply standing. He didn't win with volume. She didn't need force. Her dignity held, steady enough to make pretense retreat. A store clerk locked the exit. A manager was called. Internal security spoke into radios. This was no longer personal. Travis knew he had lost, not because he lost power, but because Maya had shown everyone that real power isn't holstered. Maya turned to the girl. "Keep the clip safe," she said softly. "Remember, not everyone holding a phone is just recording. Some use it to protect the truth." The girl nodded, eyes wet. No need to win big, no need to become a symbol, but Maya knew something had shifted, not just for her, but for everyone. Victory didn't roar in applause. It lived in the look that held on to what's right, even when everyone else was still hesitating. Maya stood at the center of raised phones and unblinking eyes. Travis was silent, his feet shifting, but his hands gave him away, no longer daring to reach for his weapon. Maya pulled out her phone and called, voice steady, breath even, reciting numbers and address like a field report. "This is Maya Reed at Central Market, 9 Jefferson Street. Officer Travis Donnell abused his authority, physically assaulted me, and made a firearm threat. Multiple witnesses, recorded footage. Requesting intervention from command or an independent oversight agency." The female dispatcher paused a second, then responded swiftly, "Stay on the line. I'm connecting you to the regional supervisor. Do not leave your location. Response is on the way." No sirens, no panic, but the system moved. Maya stayed on the call, scanning the store. Travis had backed up near the soda shelves, eyes like a trapped animal scanning for exits, but there were none. No one left. No one hid their phones. No one called it a misunderstanding. A hand lightly touched Maya's sleeve. A supermarket employee, slim, early 30s, eyes downcast. Security cameras caught it all. Him grabbing the phone, you hitting the shelf, him reaching for the gun. I've saved the footage to a private server. If they delete it, there's a backup. Maya looked at him, an unremarkable staffer, now a vital witness every battlefront needs. Someone with eyes, ethics, and courage to keep evidence alive. She didn't smile, but her eyes softened. "Thank you. That footage could save more than just me." The air was tense, not afraid, waiting to see if the system would answer. At the time, minutes later, Internal Affairs arrived. 3 people, including a middle-aged woman in a blue suit holding a file. She didn't speak to Travis, didn't approach Maya. She looked at the crowd, the phones, then nodded at the employee. "I need to see the footage, now," Travis stammered, tried to recover. "Misunderstanding. She provoked me. I was keeping order." The woman cut him off, voice sharp as military law. "Step to the right. Do not touch your weapon. Do not speak unless asked." Maya remained still, phone on, listening to the IA team report. Incident logged, under investigation. Her heartbeat stayed steady, like a soldier crossing a mined field. She knew the real battle was just beginning. But today, she didn't stay silent, and for the first time in years, the system didn't either. Just as Maya ended the call, the supermarket's main doors swung open. A tall man in a uniform like Travis's rushed in, radio in hand. Officer Mark Renner, Travis's longtime partner. The atmosphere shifted from tension to alert. Renner didn't greet anyone. He walked straight to Travis by the soda shelves, then turned to Maya. "You're the one causing a scene, right? I got reports of non-compliance, obstruction." His tone final, like a verdict. Maya didn't answer immediately. She recognized it, the reflex to shield a fellow officer no matter the context. Travis straightened, emboldened, eyes on Renner like a lifeline. "I warned her. She provoked me, grabbed my phone, knocked over stock, filmed me to make a scene." Renner nodded. "I'll handle it. Take her in, we'll sort it out at the station." The store froze. A woman shouted, "What? No one touched her. He shoved her." A young man raised his phone. "I recorded everything. Don't even try that." Maya stayed calm, though her eyes carried the weight of familiar isolation. Like the only woman of color in a command room, hearing decisions made above her head. Renner stepped forward, not drawing a weapon but radiating danger. The supermarket held its breath. Then the second set of doors opened, without warning. A man in a gray shirt entered. No badge, no gun, just presence. Mayor Jonathan Hale, flanked by an oversight office staffer holding a buzzing phone and tablet. Hale scanned the room, unhurried, looked at Maya first, nodded. "MS Reed, we've received dozens of messages, reports, and live streams in the past 30 minutes. You're not alone. This time, the system isn't staying silent." He turned to Travis and Renner. "Travis Donnell, you are immediately suspended. Surrender your weapon and badge. This case goes to the Federal Public Service Oversight Board. All footage, witnesses, and citizen records will be brought to light." Renner tried to object. Hale cut him off. "Standing with a colleague doesn't mean covering for them. This isn't about cops versus civilians, it's about a chain of misconduct. Today is the breaking point." No one applauded. But the air grew lighter. Maya exhaled, not with relief, but to release the weight of a battle for now. Before Mayor Hale entered, before the store employee brought the footage, Maya Reed stood in a no-man's land, facing down an armed officer surrounded by dozens who hadn't picked a side. The ambiguity was the scariest part. The crowd wasn't united. Some held up phones, kept distance, filming without choosing. Others whispered, glancing at Maya with suspicion. What did she do to make the cop react like that? These people always film and scream. Who knows the truth? A middle-aged man crossed his arms, murmured to his wife, "Cops don't just pick fights out of nowhere." She clutched her bag, not because she agreed, but because she feared disagreeing might spark trouble. Another aisle, a college student whispered, "She's alone. The cop has backup. It's not fair." But he didn't step forward. Among the stares, murmurs, and doubt, Maya stood alone. Spine straight, face unreadable, she knew what it was to be seen as a threat, simply for who she was. Travis sensed it too, thought he was winning. When Renner appeared, his shoulders relaxed, his voice gaining confidence. The voice of a man sure power was on his side. "I warned her. She didn't listen. Everyone saw it, right?" He turned, seeking nods. A few came, uncertain, hesitant, not because they believed, but because they weren't sure who to believe. Trust wavers when authority speaks. Maya saw it clearly, scanning the crowd, not seeking allies but gauging the fracture of society. No one cheered for Travis. No one openly backed him. But silence gave him confidence. He stepped forward, fiddling with his radio. Renner leaned in, whispered just loud enough for Maya to hear. "Take her to the station. The sooner the better." The words sliced hope of justice arriving in time. In that moment of hesitation, as power tilted toward Travis, Maya felt the isolation. Then the doors opened. Mayor Hale walked in. Truth and public will began to shift. The supermarket doors opened for the third time, carrying with them an unusual stillness. Mayor Jonathan Hale stepped inside. No security detail, no assistant, no mayoral sash. Just him. Salt and pepper hair, steady posture, seasoned eyes that hushed the room with their presence. He didn't perform. No gestures to media, no microphones or cameras. He walked straight to the store's security officer holding a tablet, playing the footage. Maya recognized him instantly. Not just his face, but the eyes. Eyes that had once locked with hers in debate at the Eastbridge Military Academy 2 decades ago, arguing over emotional control under provocation. That debate had ended in a handshake, firm, not forced. Today, those same eyes were calm, steady, but carried a quiet disappointment toward a system that should have course-corrected long ago. He paused as Hale nodded at Maya without speaking, then turned to the screen. The footage replayed, Travis dropping the items, Maya offering the phone, the snatch, and his hand moving toward the gun. The clip ended. No one asked who was right. Hale looked at Travis directly. His voice didn't rise. "Officer Donnell, you placed your hand on a weapon in the absence of real threat, used offensive language, acted without restraint, and violated the standards of civilian conduct. As mayor, I'm suspending you immediately. You are to surrender your weapon, badge, and cease duty pending an independent criminal investigation." Travis stood frozen, lips moving slightly, but no one gave him space to defend himself. The once divided crowd now stood on one side. Truth. A few audible exhales. Someone whispered, "Finally, someone did the right thing." Hale turned to Renner. "Officer Mark Renner for failing to intervene, making assumptions before reviewing evidence, and not protecting a civilian from misconduct by a colleague. Your conduct will be subject to an ethics review." Renner said nothing. His posture, once rigid with pride, softened in the weight of reality. He now understood that loyalty wasn't blind, and protecting a colleague didn't mean shielding wrongdoing. Maya remained still. No tears, no smile, just a long gaze at Hale. For the first time that long afternoon, one that felt like a battlefield, she felt seen. Not because of a title, not because of a video, but because someone who once knew who she was now affirmed. The system. Hale lowered his voice, just for her. "I got 60 messages in an hour. Not just about today, but about Donnell, from people never heard. They said your presence made them speak up." Maya paused for half a second, not surprised, but sobered by the truth. This day was never just about her and Travis. It was the tipping point, a personal story exposing a pattern. She nodded, not with pride or triumph, but in quiet agreement between two people once trained in danger recognition. now realizing unchecked power is more dangerous than any battlefield. Travis was disarmed on the spot. Renner stood silently to the side, not daring to speak. For once, the system didn't look away. Maya still stood, not retreating, not raising her hands in triumph, just steady as she had been from the beginning. The silence following Mayor Hale's suspension order lasted 7 seconds, brief, but long enough for 7 heartbeats to tremble with the realization that justice had not remained silent. Then came the first clap, not loud, but firm, from the silver-haled man near the produce section. I've seen this before. His hands weren't strong anymore, but each clap struck like a statement. Next was the pink-haled girl, the one who'd been filming, clapping with trembling shoulders, relief arriving just in time to keep faith from breaking. A beat later, the entire supermarket joined in, not synchronized. Each person clapped in their own rhythm, carrying their own emotion, anger, late apology, or quiet relief, like the mother hugging her child. No one clapped for Hale. They were grateful, yes, but the applause was for the woman who didn't shout, didn't rage, didn't cry. She simply stood, without stepping back. The man who once defended Travis clapped, softly, but sincerely. A brown-skinned teenager grinned, clapping so hard it stung like a game-winning goal. Maya smiled, not brightly, not proudly, just the soft curve of someone who had walked a long road through injustice, whispering to herself, I didn't break. She didn't win because she was a victim. She won because she refused to be silent. Hale lowered his hand, like a commander completing his duty. No speech, knowing the applause wasn't for him, and feeling proud. An employee opened the door. Afternoon light spilled in. In that glow stood a black woman, no uniform, no medal, who made a city reconsider itself. They weren't clapping for power. They were clapping for dignity. The supermarket door closed after the task force left. Mayor Hale stayed behind long enough to ensure witness statements, camera footage, and phone recordings were collected. Travis was escorted out through the back. No cuffs, no badge. Renner wasn't asked to leave, but knew the community's trust was gone. The storm had passed, leaving behind a stillness. No tension, no buzz, just everything falling back into place. Maya stood in the aisle, shoulders softened by the ceiling lights, posture steady. She didn't leave right away, didn't follow the press, didn't speak, just stood still, surveying the aftermath like a soldier scanning a battlefield. People trickled out. The pink-haired girl waved, a mother carrying her child, touched Maya's shoulder with tearful eyes in place of thanks, and the old man nodded with a knowing glint. Alone now, Maya faced the grocery section. The low hum of the AC filled the air. On the ground lay the instant noodle packet, dropped by Travis, picked up by Maya, then placed down mid-confrontation. It remained untouched, unnamed, a trace of everything that had just unfolded. She stepped forward slowly. No glances, no cameras, no spotlight. She picked up the packet, dust-coated, faint shoe prints across it. She brushed it off, gently, as if cleansing something deeper, then placed it back on the shelf, not perfectly aligned, not for display, just where it belonged. She stood there a moment longer, not to reflect, but to listen. No triumph, no relief, just the weight of something finished. Some battles don't end with a verdict, but in how you treat the final detail. For Maya, the noodles were both beginning and end, a small gesture, a quiet chapter, in a journey few had truly seen. She turned and walked away, slow and sure, her footsteps careful not to disturb what had just been put right. The automatic doors opened. Afternoon light spilled across her shoulders. Behind her, the shelf bore the touch of a woman who didn't rage, didn't retreat, but chose right. At the store, she didn't yet know that on the other side of millions of screens, a chain reaction had begun. A 4-minute video filmed by the pink-haired girl had gone live on TikTok with a single caption, "When standing still gets you labeled a threat." Within 2 hours, it had 100,000 views. 6 hours later, over 1 million. On Twitter, a 12-second clip of Travis's hand resting near his gun circulated with the hashtag "Don't touch your gun." A major account reposted it with the caption, "If this is a reflex, we've normalized something deadly." By morning, Maya Reed, the woman who just went to buy noodles and water, was one of the most searched names on X, Instagram, and Reddit. Thousands reshared the video, angry and alarmed. Some wrote, "No yelling, no resistance, no violence," and she still had her phone grabbed. What if there'd been no camera? Others asked, if she had reacted, would her name be on another tragic list by now? Civil rights lawyers, journalists, and scholars quickly framed this not as a supermarket incident, but as a collision point between authority, bias, and emotional control. Activists like Darnell Gray and Clara Noel penned essays citing clips, laws, and precedent. Within 48 hours, CNN, Vox, and the New York Times had covered the story. On national news, a solemn anchor read Maya's quote from the video, "Are you sure you want to do this?" before looking into the camera and saying, "No one should have to ask that just for standing still while being black." Maya remained silent. She didn't take calls, didn't go on air, didn't post. Her only circulated image was a candid still, standing tall, facing Travis, his gun still holstered but the threat thick in the air. When reporters knocked, she left a note on her door. "I don't need protection. Just don't forget next time when someone else isn't being filmed." Still, the dominoes fell. A hashtag campaign, "I Was Maya," appeared, with black women sharing stories of being pulled over, questioned, humiliated, with only their memory as proof. A major publisher offered to print Maya's words as a standalone piece. A civil education platform invited her as an advisor. She declined them all. She didn't want attention. She didn't want to win. She just wanted truth. And for people like Travis to be seen for what they were. Ironically, because she refused to become a symbol, she became one, not of defiance, but of awakening. After the mayor, the press, and the public had their moment, Maya should have returned to a quiet life. But she knew justice comes at a cost, especially when it threatens not a man, but a structure. 3 days after Travis's indictment was made public, small signs began. Her phone lost signal intermittently. A stranger rang her doorbell at midnight, then vanished. Spam messages flooded her inbox. "You should think about your family." She brushed them off at first, but she had served. She knew what it felt like to be watched. Rumors swirled. Travis's family was linked to a network of disgraced ex-officers who now ran an off-grid civil protection group. They specialized in handling situations. 1 week later, after teaching a legal literacy class at Unmute, a man appeared outside. White shirt, sunglasses, leaning against a black SUV near a broken public camera, no name, just a line, "I'm here on behalf of an old friend. We don't want this dragged out. If you cooperate, this can all go away." He pulled out a gray envelope, no seal, no signature. Inside, a rewritten affidavit implying Maya had provoked the confrontation. All it lacked was her signature. Maya glanced at the paper, then at him. She said nothing, just placed the envelope on the bench beside her. A nod, not of agreement, but understanding. Then she walked away. The man didn't stop her, didn't threaten, but behind her he spoke clearly. "You're rational. I hope you stay that way longer than the others who tried." Maya didn't pause. But she knew. This was the warning. The first blow hadn't landed. This was just the opening move in a war fought in shadows. That night, Maya changed all passwords, sent a backup of her files to 2 former military colleagues. She told no one in her family. She wouldn't risk them. But her world had shifted. The garage, the stairwell, even the elevator mirror, any could be a place of attack. She wasn't afraid. She had known this feeling, but she knew next time it wouldn't be paper. It would be blood, or a falsified confession, and she wouldn't let that happen. Montgomery slept under dim streetlights. The lot behind Maya's building had no guard, the camera still broken. But she walked home like always, not out of carelessness, but control. As she neared her silver sedan, keys ready, they came. 3 men. No shouting, no warning, just trained movements, 3 directions, shoulder, stomach, back. The first grabbed her arm. Mistake. Maya pivoted low and drove her knee into his gut. He folded. The second approached. She had already grabbed the baton from the first. 1 strike to the shoulder, another to the jaw. He staggered. The third, bigger, waiting behind the car. She didn't falter. When he lunged, she sidestepped, locked his elbow, and snapped it. He fell, skull cracking against the curb, No more footsteps. The others vanished. The last man staggered and ran. No signatures, no threats. Just proof. Maya was no longer easy prey. She stood there, bleeding from the wrist, bruised cheek, still upright. The baton lay at her feet. One attacker's phone still lit nearby. She didn't pick it up. She picked up the folder that had fallen during the fight. The file on Travis's case. Reports, matched testimonies, camera footage. She brushed it off, tucked it back. Hand bloodied, but steady. She looked to the dead camera, not to plead for help, but to say, "I'm not backing down. And this time, you can't kill the truth." Later, at her apartment, she cleaned her wound. No medical team, no audience. Just Maya, steady, efficient, like she had been in the field. In her hands was the Travis Donnell file, the updated indictment, surveillance stills, whistleblower notes, one page scribbled with, "I should have done this sooner." She flipped through, not to review, but to remember. This wasn't paperwork, it was armor and a weapon. She called her lawyer, Claudette Ingram. No greeting. "I'm bringing the file in tomorrow. Secure it. Copy it. We might need federal court and media." Claudette paused, then replied, "I'll be waiting." Doors open at 6 a.m. Maya hung up, drove toward the city. Lights in the distance shimmered, not as celebration, but as stubborn hope. The radio buzzed. "Suspected tampering with a witness in the Donnell case. The mayor's office is monitoring." She didn't listen further. She didn't need to. When she got home, she carried no weapon, just the blood-stained file. Wiped it, sealed it, and placed it on her desk. Next to it, a photo of her family and a handwritten letter from a UNMUTE student. "You're why I believe silence can be beaten." Maya looked at the black folder, switched on her desk lamp. One beam of light, enough to illuminate the label. Travis Donnell, Special Investigation Dossier. She spoke aloud, not loud, but firm. "Tomorrow, we stop bowing to the dark." The next morning, Montgomery District Court was packed. Media crews set up tripods at the gate. A young reporter delivered her intro. This landmark trial isn't just about Officer Travis Donnell's conduct, but a broader conversation about power in law enforcement. Cameras clicked as Travis arrived in a gray suit and blue tie, flanked by lawyers trying to look calm but clenching his hands, collar tugged high, a misstep betraying his nerves under the gaze of the waiting crowd. Courtroom 2 was filled to capacity. Witnesses and citizens from the incident sat on the right, journalists, legal observers, and civil groups on the left. Maya sat in the third row, behind the prosecution, in a plain white shirt. Unassuming, yet her presence shifted the room's posture. Judge Morwin, silver-haired and stern, entered through the side door. "We are convened for the trial of Travis Donnell, charged with abuse of power, bodily harm against Maya Reed, and violations of police ethics." Prosecutor Claudette Ingram stood, clear and firm. The defendant overstepped authority in front of dozens of witnesses, cameras, and a woman who spent over 2 decades protecting people like him. She pointed to the screen. Video playing. Travis drops items. Maya speaks up. Words escalate. He grabs her phone, his hand on the gun. The room fell silent. Travis lowered his head. Defense attorney Randall Monroe responded, "My client was provoked." His reaction was professional instinct, not violent intent. A few in the gallery scoffed. Maya sat still, back straight, fingers locked, thumb rubbing her knuckle, not from fear but to stay grounded, resisting memories of past hearings where her reports had been doubted. Behind her, a middle-aged woman whispered, "Why is someone like her treated like that?" Another replied, "Believe it, happens daily, just not always on camera." Witnesses took the stand. A store employee confirmed video timestamps. A girl with footage gave a detailed account. Mrs. Reed didn't touch anyone, didn't escalate. She stood and spoke. A gray-haired juror scribbled notes. The trial had just begun, but already light was creeping in, not blinding, not dramatic, just enough to reveal, this time, justice wasn't crushed under badges or weapon. As we got to the next trial, Travis sat silent. Over an hour into the trial, the curiosity had faded, replaced by tension, each fact slicing away his long-worn mask. Ingram stepped forward again, holding a thick black file. Her voice was steady, each word weighted. "Your Honor, This is a record of complaints against Travis Donnell. 11 years of service, 14 complaints, 6 from civilians, 4 from fellow officers, 2 from internal supervisors, 2 from victims' families. Gasps in the room weren't for the number, but for the truth long buried. Handled internally. Dismissed due to no video. Maya gripped her shirt hem. She knew there were others like Travis, but hadn't expected so many stains ignored. First witness. A black woman in her 40s, raspy voice. I filed a complaint in 2013. I asked why I was being ticketed. He said, people like you should be grateful you're not in cuffs. The department said, insufficient basis. No one called back. Her eyes showed no rage, just the dimmed hope of someone once believing the system would answer. Second, a retired officer, weary tone. I supervised Travis for 3 years, saw him intimidate civilians, belittle rookies. I reported it, was told, don't push frontline officers, he'll adjust. I retired early. I didn't want to train recruits to look away. Jurors exchanged glances. Judge Moreland nodded faintly. This wasn't isolated. It was systemic. Third, a young woman, 18, glasses, holding a complaint. The one who filmed Maya. Travis didn't insult me, but he called my brother a stray walking home from art class. No video. No one believed us. He cried. Didn't leave the house for a week. That's why I filmed at the store, so silence wouldn't win again. Maya tilted her head. She didn't know the girl's name, but felt the spark her stand had lit. The defense responded. Complaints don't equal guilt. No charges filed. Just words, no proof. Ingram raised a printed security feed from 2018. Once lost signal, now recovered. No evidence, or no will to preserve it. Silence. Travis leaned back, eyes darting at the jury for sympathy, but none met his gaze like before. The air shifted. Words now carried weight. Judge Moreland gestured for the defense rebuttal. Monroe adjusted his tie. Calm. Tragic situation, but my client, Officer Donnell, was not in his right state. He faces relentless pressure. Hundreds of emergency calls, an impossible standard of perfection. People break under that. From the 4th row, I do 10-hour shifts on construction. Never snatched a phone. Travis took the stand. Not defiant, but sunken. Hoarse voice, rehearsed sorrow. 11 years. I've saved lives, stopped crimes, never taken leave. That day I saw a woman filming. I thought it was a setup. She stood there, barely moved. I reacted. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I'm not a bad person, just doing my job the way I was taught. No laughter, but glances exchanged said no one believed him. The prosecution approached for cross. No papers, just her voice. Mr. Donnell, you say stress clouded judgment. Why was your hand on your gun? In a supermarket, no weapon drawn, no threat. I was preparing in case something went wrong. A threat like a woman standing still, unarmed, saying nothing. Travis said nothing. No video. Would you have claimed she was aggressive? Reported her for threatening an officer? Still silence. Ingram didn't raise her voice. Just let the truth stand bare. Maya was called back. She walked slowly, didn't glance at Travis, hands clasped. Ms. Reed, any final statement? She paused 3 seconds. Then, softly, I learned in the military not everyone in uniform is dangerous. But that day, I didn't see a cop. I saw a man who couldn't stand being corrected by a woman of color. She turned to the jury, calm. I'm not here for revenge, just to ask if there was no camera, no witnesses, would I be sitting here or in a cell? No one answered, but everyone understood. No more confusion. This wasn't about one bad officer. Maya's question, where would I be without the camera, became a mirror for every unrecorded, unheard story. Ingram called 3 final witnesses, not tied to the incident, but representing overlooked justice, the community. Witness 1. A 17-year-old student, curly hair, wrinkled shirt, shaky tie. I'm in 11th grade. 6 months ago, police stopped me biking. Said I didn't look like a student. No footage. No one defended me. I was held for over an hour for not having ID. If I were Maya, would you believe me without video? The question hit home. Truth without evidence often doesn't exist. Witness 2, a young police officer, Joseph Wren, 28, crisp uniform, sharp haircut, steady eyes. I love this job, but I don't love silence. I've heard officers like Travis for years. People know. but they stay quiet, afraid of losing their careers. Today I say this: no one represents the badge through threats. Uniforms mean nothing if they shield abuse. Rare to hear that from inside the force. Witness 3. A sociology professor, Dr. Lorraine Shen, civil law and society. White hair, thin glasses, soft but piercing voice. Don't ask why they overreact. Ask what kept them silent for so long. Travis's actions weren't a mistake. They are products of a system that protects unchecked power. Every small incident ignored, like instant noodles shoved off a shelf, is a brick in the wall of systemic silence. She turned to the jury. Don't judge a man, judge the machine. Force it to change. The words reverberated. Heads nodded. Eyes widened. Doubt turned to belief. Maya sat still. Eyes not on the court, but on the voices rising. Not for her, but for those who could have been her. That afternoon, the sun cast long shadows across Montgomery District Courthouse. After 4 hours of deliberation, the jury returned. Steps slow, weighted like they carried more than a verdict. They carried a moral declaration. The courtroom was as full as day one. Maya wasn't present. She'd declined the front row. I don't need to hear the verdict to know I was right. She stood at a local community center, teaching a crash course in civil rights, proof enough of where she belonged. Judge Moreland took the bench. No gavel, just silence. Has the jury reached a decision? A woman in her 50s, voice firm. Unanimous. No dissent. Verdict: Travis Donnell, guilty of abuse of authority, bodily harm, unlawful use of a firearm, and ethical violations. Sentence: 8 years prison, no parole. Permanent revocation of law enforcement credentials. Full public record for institutional reform. Travis didn't cry, didn't plead, just leaned back, staring at the ceiling, as if hoping it would speak for him. Claudette Ingram didn't smile. She closed her folder, whispered to her aide, "We didn't win. We opened a door for others to walk through." Headlines followed fast, short and heavy. Officer Travis Donnell, guilty, justice, finally heard. At the community center, a student asked Maya, "Do you think the sentence is enough?" She replied, "Not yet, but enough that the next person won't stand alone." That night, as Travis was escorted from HQ, a letter lay on Mayor Hale's desk, scribbled in pencil on notebook paper. "I used to fear cops. After that day, I believe silence can be broken, thanks to the woman who didn't run." A month after the trial, Montgomery returned to its usual rhythm. News of Travis Donnell faded from the headlines. Social media cooled down, but the way people looked at a woman who stood up had changed. Maya Reed didn't choose to become a symbol. She didn't write a memoir, didn't appear on talk shows, didn't sign on as the face of any campaign. She returned to the East Wing classroom, where the community legal literacy course, UNUT, had to open 3 more spots due to overwhelming demand. Her students were janitors, rideshare drivers, high school juniors. A father once stopped for walking the wrong way. Every session, Maya began with, "I'm not here to teach you how to win. I'm here to teach you not to believe silence is the price of safety." People called her a new kind of instructor, a leader who didn't raise her voice but made the entire room fall silent. Mayor Hale asked her to train young officers, not in law, but in self-control before control over others. Maya accepted, not for prestige, but because she knew, if Travis had been trained right, things might have turned out differently. At her first session, she didn't bring lecture slides. She told a story about a pack of noodles, a small moment that, if left on the floor, could become a century's wound. A young officer asked, "Were you ever afraid?" She smiled. "Fear is easy. Standing firm while afraid takes a lifetime of training." The media sought her out, not for drama, but because schools and civil groups wanted to replicate UNMUT. She declined most offers. She didn't want to become a commodified symbol, forgotten, flattened, or distorted. Still, people called her one, because choosing not to chase symbolism gave her voice real weight. At Montgomery's police reform commemoration, Maya spoke. No flowers, no music, no theatrics. Just a short-haired woman, speaking evenly, eyes fixed on a row of young cadets. "I'm not here because I was right. I'm here because too many who were right never got to tell their story. I don't want to be a hero. I just want every child to grow up not having to learn how to endure disrespect. She stepped down. No roaring applause, but many in the crowd said quietly, "Thank you for not walking away." Maya never set out to be a symbol, but her quiet resolve helped history change course.